My name is Gareth Rees. I'm at Cardiff University. The project's concerned with the relationships between higher education and civil society. The research team is a select band. I'm on it, obviously, and Chris Taylor, who's also at Cardiff, is co-director of the project. At the moment, we have one full-time researcher working on the project, Karen Evans, and Karen has worked with us previously on an earlier project to do with higher education. And we'll also be working quite closely with the person who's yet to be appointed, who will be particularly concerned with some of the quantitative aspects of the project. There's quite a lot of evidence from previous research that suggests that the higher your level of education, then the greater your involvement in civil society. And what we're trying to do is to focus more specifically on the implications of going to university for engagement in civil society. And there's a sense in which, therefore, there are two elements of the project, higher education on the one hand, civil society on the other. So we know that there have been, in the second half of the 20th century through into the 21st century, there have been huge changes in the organisation of higher education. Simply put, the enormous expansion of higher education, far more people going to university now, far higher proportion of the population with experience of higher education now than was the case previously. And one of the paradoxes really is that huge institutional change, that certainly in sociological terms, we know quite a lot about very particular aspects of the kind of the social implications of that. So we know a lot about higher education and social mobility and so on. But what we don't know very much about is how far the changes in the organisation of higher education have affected the role that graduates play in civil society. So that's, if you like, on one side of the equation. Then there's civil society. And what we're interested in there is to assess the extent to which the fact that so many more people are going to civil society means that the kinds of roles that graduates used to play in civil society, going back, say to the 1960s or 70s, people who graduated then, what kind of role did they play and do they play in civil society compared with people who graduate from university much more recently and in the changed circumstances that I've already outlined. So the question is are there differences? What exactly are those differences, and what does that tell us about the nature of changes in civil society? This project, its principal objectives are essentially analytical. One of the things that it will contribute is it will tell us something new about the social implications of the huge expansion in higher education that has taken place. And so in that sense, it is intended to contribute to the development of a sociology of higher education as much as it is about the sociology of civil society. But I think it will contribute also to the development of a more kind of empirically informed sociology of civil society, in that necessarily, I think particularly when we look at the changes over time that have taken place in the roles which graduates play in civil society, that will necessarily tell us something about the changing nature of civil society itself, because on the basis of earlier research there are good grounds for saying that the kinds of learning experiences that characterize graduates have been integral to the as it were, the constitution of civil society. And in a sense, one of the most interesting questions to ask is in what ways do graduates in the contemporary context, do they continue to contribute in those sorts of ways to the very constitution, as I say, of civil society, or are there new kinds of roles that are being played? And it seems to me that in exploring those issues, we necessarily will at the same time be exploring the very social constitution of civil society itself.